Broadcasting live from California, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. I am your host, Connor Wise. I hope all of you had an amazing 4th of July and an amazing 4th of July weekend. But as always, so much happened over the past week, and it didn't really slow down for the holiday weekend. In fact, you'll see later in the episode, a lot of things actually sped up over this holiday weekend, especially in Chicago. But we'll get to that later in the episode. To start off this episode, though, it's actually coming out now that CNN might have committed a crime. Now, if you don't know, Donald Trump, on Sunday, I believe, he tweeted out this GIF of him back in his pre-politics days when he was wrestling. He was on WWE. And it was a GIF of him basically tackling someone with CNN edited onto their face. And so Donald Trump tweeted that out, and CNN freaked out about it, of course. And so they tracked down the person who made that actual GIF. And now they're facing very widespread backlash because they were seemingly implying that they would reveal the identity of the Reddit user who actually made this GIF if he refused to say an apology for it. And so some critics are suggesting that the network could have some legal problems on his hands after doing this. Texas Senator Ted Cruz took to Twitter to cite Georgia state law's prohibition against theft by extortion. So he went and he aired all of his grievances about this, saying that, yeah, they possibly could have been extorting this guy here. And WikiLeaks' Julian Assange also went onto Twitter to claim that CNN may have violated various states and federal laws related to coercion and the First Amendment. Now, there's so many different laws that he listed there that I'm not going to read through all of them, but there's at least 9 or 10 laws that he's claiming that CNN could have broken. And CNN, though, they've adamantly defended their handling of this recent story, issuing a statement just today saying that the network did not publish the user's name out of concern for his safety, adding, quote, "Any assertion that the network blackmailed or coerced him is false." In the statement, CNN said the team published the line in question to be, quote, "transparent that there was no deal." Andrew Kaczynski, he's the senior editor and founding member of the cable network's K-File investigative team. They're the people who actually went through and found this creator of the GIF. He tweeted several defenses of the article, saying parts were being misinterpreted. The Reddit user in question, of course, was behind that GIF that President Trump tweeted out on Sunday. And CNN, they tracked him down. They looked at all these different statistics from Facebook to Twitter where people were getting the GIF from, and they definitely tracked him down. And so they compared all this information to find him, and CNN did decide against publishing the user's real name, but the network appeared to kind of have a little caveat to that decision. Quote, "CNN is not publishing the user's name because he is a private citizen who has issued an extensive statement of apology, showed his remorse by saying he has taken down all his offending posts, and because he is not going to repeat this ugly behavior on social media again." This is from the article that they published. It continued, "CNN reserves the right to publish his identity should any of that change." And that line right there is where all of this fuss is coming out of. CNN reserves the right to publish his identity should any of that change. So what they're basically implying here is if the creator of this GIF, this Reddit user, if he decides that he's not sorry for what he did, then CNN is going to basically dox him or release all of his private information to everyone so that he can be all of his information is out there to the public. They're saying that if he doesn't do what they want, they're going to release everything. Furthermore, CNN's initial Tuesday tweet about the article implied the Reddit user only apologized once he was contacted by the K-File. So what that said is exclusive. CNN tracked down the Reddit user behind the Trump wrestling gif. Now he's apologizing. Kaczynski defended his unit's work, however, saying, quote, "The line is being misinterpreted. It was intended only to mean we made no agreement with the man about his identity." Adding at one point, CNN specifically chose not to reveal this guy's identity, and to say we threatened anyone is a total lie. Kaczynski also said the Reddit user had been made aware of the ongoing internet kerfuffle and had gotten in touch with him again. He said that, "For your information, this user just called me. And said, quote, I am in total agreement with your statement. I was not threatened in any way." Now, Kaczynski initially said the user posted his apology before they ever spoke to him, but then they changed their story up, and he said that the user only apologized after they talked to him and after they actually published the article and all of this. So it's definitely very controversial here, and CNN's kind of in a tight spot because what we're seeing is they didn't like the fact that Donald Trump posted this GIF that showed him beating up CNN, something that honestly was happening in real life, and it was just a meme. It was a visual representation of something. And so CNN didn't like it, so they literally tracked down the person that made this GIF and essentially forced him to apologize for it and forced him to say that he was in the wrong when he just created a meme like thousands of other people's across the nation. But they forced him to apologize for it and said that they would release his private information if he didn't apologize. And so, as I actually said at the beginning of this article, there's actually a lot of laws across the nation that this could possibly violate, from state laws to even federal coercion laws. There are a lot of different things that this could definitely violate. And we know that CNN is not above actually doing this. We know that CNN has lied to the public time after time. They're not above doing something to try to protect their reputation. Just last week we covered a very long segment about how it was proven that the entire Russia collusion story that they continue to pound out there is false. So they're not above lying to the people. They're not above lying to get their ratings up and to get more money. And I'm sure they're not above lying or coercing to try and get someone to apologize for something like this, because their ratings have dropped significantly over the past few weeks. Their ratings are going down very quickly, and so this was kind of a last-ditch effort of them to try and get their ratings back up, to try and say, oh, no, he didn't mean that, so we're going to get all of you to watch us again because he apologized. That's essentially what they are trying to do here. But the bigger picture here, this is according to the mainstream media, according to liberals, and sadly, according to a lot of people, CNN is a reputable source. They're supposed to be. The media is supposed to be reputable. We all know that CNN is highly liberally biased. And we all know, if you're listening to this show, I assume you know that they're not really that reputable. But in the actual real world, they're considered reputable because everything has a liberal leaning in terms of media. But this is a reputable news agency, supposedly, coercing someone, blackmailing someone into doing something that they want. Forcing him to say that he was sorry. Forcing him to say that what he did was wrong, when there was nothing wrong with what he did. He was not in the wrong for making that GIF. He was not in the wrong for it going viral. And it definitely wasn't his fault that our president shared it on his Twitter account. But they tracked him down. They used all this different information, tracked him down, got all of his personal information, and forced him to apologize. Now, if you look at this and you don't think there's anything wrong, then you're not looking at all the details right. Because this is just wrong, that any major news organization, or anyone for that matter, would coerce someone like this, would blackmail a just random Reddit user. Some guy that just made something for fun And now he's being attacked because of it. Because of all of this publicity, good and bad, that has come from this different story, the Reddit user has actually deleted his account since then. That might have been another part of what CNN wanted him to do. But this is just crazy. The fact that this had to happen, the fact that CNN went that far just because President Trump tweeted out a GIF. It's really kind of sad that they went to that extent and broke those laws, possibly. But we're actually seeing, moving on from CNN, because we have talked a lot about CNN for the past couple episodes. Moving on, there's actually, in a few states, we saw that food stamps had gotten a few changes. In a few states, they restored work requirements for them. So, of course, for a lot of years under the Obama administration, food stamps, they greatly expanded the number of people on them. So many more people joined the food stamps program and started basically depending on it for their family to survive. Or not even to survive, they just started depending on it and living off of it. But now fresh figures just coming out within this past week are showing a dramatic reduction in states that have recently moved to restore work requirements. States were allowed to waive those rules for able-bodied adults thanks to the 2009 economic stimulus because of President Obama. Now, as the rules loosened and the economy sputtered out of the recession, food stamp enrollment soared to record levels. It peaked at nearly 48 million people nationwide in 2013. That number definitely has dipped gradually since then, but some states have actually moved to aggressively push recipients who can work back into the job market and in due time off of the food stamp program. Alabama began this year by requiring able-bodied adults without children in 13 different counties to either find a job or participate in work training as a condition for continuing to receive Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits, or food stamps. According to Alabama.com, their actual website, the number of those recipients declined from 5,538 to 831 between January 1st and the beginning of May. That is an 85% drop. So if this was actually administered correctly, that means that 85% of the people on this food stamp program were basically just using it to try and get by without working, to try and get by without actually having to put work forth and living off of the government. That's essentially what this is saying, 85%. And similar changes were implemented in select counties in Georgia, and by the end of the first 3 months there, the number of adults receiving benefits in 3 participating counties dropped 58%. And now that's according to the Georgia Public Policy Foundation. Quote, welfare was never intended to be a one-way handout, but a program based on the idea of reciprocity. And that's from the Heritage Foundation fellow Robert Rector. Now, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution recently reported that in 21 additional counties that restored work requirement, there was a 62% drop in those participants in the program. Quote, work requirements have been enormously successful at reducing the number of people on food stamps. And while they made sense in the early part of the recession when unemployment was higher, that is no longer the case, from Robert Doerr, who is a fellow in poverty studies at the American Enterprise Institute. A key component of the 1996 Welfare Reform Bill was the work requirement applies to able-bodied adults without dependents, and that's from 18-year-olds to 49-year-olds. And as I said earlier, Barack Obama took that out upon a part of the stimulus package, which, in my opinion, was one of the worst economic packages that our nation has ever seen. It didn't help our nation whatsoever, and in fact, it just plunged us $10 trillion into debt. So it really wasn't a good program or a good package that he's put into place. And of course, the numbers from that soared. The numbers because of that on food stamps, it more than doubled from 1.9 million in 2008 to 3.9 million in just 2 years to 2010. The number continued to rise, but since has slipped to roughly 4.2 million, according to the USDA. and most states still offer full or partial waivers. Advocates for waivers continue to argue that the flexibility is needed to help people get back on their feet in the wake of the economic crisis, and a call in the Trump administration's budget to resurrect the work mandate and scale back SNAP's budget has drawn fire from anti-hunger advocates. Quote, parents will work just as hard at unforgiving jobs and see less food on the table for their families. Children will become sicker without the proper nutrition, ending up in hospitals or on the rolls of what social services remain. Some children will die. Yeah, that's what liberals always go to. People are going to die. That was Mariana Chilton, who's a professor, of course a liberal then, of public health at Drexel University. So basically what people are saying is if we don't continue to keep off these work requirements, people are going to die. The world is going to cease to function. All of those families that drop it because of the work requirements are going to just die. That's what liberals are trying to say here. That's what these people who are arguing for it are trying to say. But these work requirements are an amazing thing, and they work because it makes these people who are on it actually starting to get back on their feet. They're actually using welfare for its purpose, which is not to live off of, but it's to get people back onto their feet so that they can go back out into the job market and contribute to society. Instead of draining our government of all the money, instead of living off of welfare. I don't know why people continue to argue for a welfare state. Our welfare program has doubled, tripled during the Obama years. And it has hurt our nation because we have so many people who are unemployed. We have so many people who aren't working, who aren't putting into the system but are just taking out. So many people are doing that because of the current systems. But when you have these work requirements for food stamps, and if you even implemented it to other programs, it would help so much because these people who are just trying to live off of it, they're not going to want to be a part of that anymore. They're going to try and find some other way to just live without working. They're not going to go into these work programs. They're not going to be trying to find jobs because that's not what they want to do. They want to just live off of the government. So they're going to drop it, just like 85% of the people did in Alabama. This works, and this is what was in place before President Obama. But for some reason, he thought it would be great to have everyone depend on the government. He thought it would be perfect for 85% more people to be on this program. He thought it would be great to have people depending on the government instead of themselves, so that they can't provide for themselves anymore, so that they have to depend on the government, the overbearing and outreaching government. These work programs are an amazing idea, and they need to be re-implemented across the entire nation, because that is going to reduce the amount of people on food stamps, reduce the amount of people on food stamps that don't even need to be on food stamps. Because I guarantee there are many people who are just trying to live off of the government, and we can't continue to have that, folks, because our nation is already too far in debt for that. We're already $19.9 trillion, and we need more people contributing not only to society, but to our economy as well. All right, I'm going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is The Wise Conservative Show. Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from The Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And every time that these universities take up this new social change that they're trying to promote, every time they take that up, they are taking away from that education instead. Because now they're focusing on these social changes instead of learning like they should be.
Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, The Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. PragerU.com.
Have you ever wanted to stand up to your liberal professor? Have you ever wanted to help expand the conservative movement? Well, it sounds like you would be a perfect fit for Youth Revolt. Youth Revolt is a team of dedicated young conservatives fighting liberal indoctrination within our school system. If you're interested in being a part of this team by being a columnist or even hosting your own radio show, go ahead and click the Join Now tab at the top of youthrevolt.org. You'll be asked to answer a few questions, and a Youth Revolt team member will respond to you quickly. Be a part of something bigger than you. Be a part of Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
My friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. There are a lot of frauds out there today. People who claim to be conservatives and yet, in one way or another, believe that more government is the solution to our problems. That's not what conservatism is about, and even more than that, that's not what our Constitution is about. I'm Jason Veely, a recent college grad who has the guts to say what needs to be said without pulling any punches. On my radio show, you can expect 100% pure conservatism every single weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Join me as we discuss history, liberty, and conservative philosophy in a style that is just as entertaining as it is educational. Who says we can't have fun tearing down the liberal establishment? Tune in to the Jason Veely program live every weeknight at 7 o'clock on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate!
Love trumping hate involves a lot more assault and arson than I expected. The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, if you were here at the very beginning of the episode, I said something about how a lot of things actually sped up, especially in Chicago, over this past weekend. Well, it is Chicago, so I'm sure you already know where this is going. Chicago's July 4th weekend was apparently very deadly. We saw that 64 people were shot this past weekend, and 8 of those people were killed. It was definitely a very bloody mark on Chicago, a city known for its massive gun control. The holiday weekend has become the most violent period in the city for the last several years, despite the extra efforts to stop the shootings before they start. Police have increased street patrols and allocated resources through predictive policing, which uses data to identify hotspots for crime. Still, the nation's third largest city has seen nearly 330 murders already this year. This year isn't that far in. I mean, it's only 7 months in, and there's already 330 murders in Chicago. Those shot during the weekend included children. This city is out of control, folks. Before the holiday weekend, the Chicago Police Department sent additional patrols to 2 of the most violent areas of the city and arrested 88 gang members there. In an email, the police department said there were 64 shootings from Friday to 6 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. Tuesday. After midnight, the violence continued with 21 more shootings. 6 of those were deadly. Quote, the vast majority of violence was concentrated within a 6-hour period on Monday night, predominantly on the south and west sides of the city. Detectives are still working this morning to establish motive, but we suspect several incidents were retaliatory in nature and alcohol was a factor in others. Now, of course, this bloody weekend came just days after President Trump administration sent in federal agents to help police fight the violence in Chicago. In late June, Trump tweeted, "Crime and killings in Chicago have reached such epidemic proportions that I am sending in federal help. 1,714 shootings in Chicago this year." Attorney General Jeff Sessions released a written statement afterwards saying the administration created the Chicago Gun Strike Force and would send 20 more permanent ATF agents to Chicago, reallocating federal prosecutors and prioritizing prosecutions to reduce gun violence and working with law enforcement partners. Quote, "The Trump administration will not let the bloodshed go on. We cannot accept these levels of violence," he said. So we definitely do have a very big problem in Chicago. This is something that, of course, every conservative knows about, and I'm sure every liberal knows about. Chicago is the #1 city in America for gun control. Coincidentally, is also the #1 city in America for murders. Chicago has this such high crime rate, and yes, gangs are a huge problem of it, and I don't see why that makes it any better, though. I've debated many liberals on this, on gun control in the past, and I bring up Chicago, and they always say that Chicago doesn't count because all of that violence is because of gangs. But that literally makes no sense, folks. Because, yes, it is gangs, but they're still getting their guns illegally. They're still getting their guns even though it is a very highly controlled city. It is a very high gun control area. Yet they're still able to get those guns. They're still able to murder those innocent people who have no defenses. Gun control is killing people in Chicago because the bad guys have the guns and the good guys don't. The bad guys are able to do whatever they want. No matter how many more police agents we send, federal or local, to Chicago, this isn't going to end because the citizens, the law-abiding citizens of Chicago, barely have any weapons to defend themselves with. It has been proven time after time that gun control does not work. It has been proven time after time that being able to defend yourself with a firearm helps, and it stops the amount of deaths in any shooting. It stops the amount of deaths highly because you are able to defend yourselves and defend those around you. Yeah, Chicago does have a gun problem. No, gun control is not the answer to it. They have tried that. They have tried more governmental control over gun control, over guns, and it doesn't work. What they need to do is actually let the law-abiding citizens have some defense. Actually allow those who are following the law to be able to defend their families, their children. Because at its current rate, Chicago is just higher and higher murder rate every year. More and more people are shooting people, or more and more murders are happening at exponential rates. This has to change. Gun control does not work, folks, and Chicago is a prime example of it. I only brought up this story on my show to kind of show how bad gun control actually works. I mean, I've used it so many times, Chicago, as an example. I've used Australia as an example before. They completely banned firearms in their nation. They literally took the guns from citizens. They went out and they collected them. Their violent crime rate is just as high as it was before they did that. These are all facts that conservatives need to know so that when they get into debates with liberals over gun control, they have them and they can use them and they can show that gun control doesn't work. The taking away law-abiding citizens' firearms doesn't work. Yeah, there is a very bad problem in Australia with their violent crime rate. No, it's not guns' fault. They don't have any guns. Yes, there is a very high murder rate in Chicago. No, it's not the fault of the gun. It's the fault of the gun control. Liberals' policies are actually killing people in cities like Chicago. Gun control is actually hurting the city of Chicago. And it's just going to continue to get worse. And another thing the liberals continue to do is actually hurting more than just gangs and people in Chicago. It's hurting police officers across the entire nation. We definitely have seen an increase in police officer deaths on duty within this past year. I'm sure you've heard of that recent ambush shooting that killed a New York police officer in the Bronx just yesterday. And so we actually saw, as we look at all the numbers after that there's definitely a growing number of officer deaths in 2017. It's up 18% from this time last year. A total of 67 officers have died so far this year, according to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. It found there were 57 officer deaths between January 1st and July 5th, 2016. In addition, gun-related deaths have risen by 9% from 22 to 24 for 2017, the researchers say. The figures suggest a grim trend. 2016 was the deadliest year for police in 5 years. A total of 135 officers died last year. New York Police Department officer, the last officer that was basically assassinated, he was ambushed. It was during an unprovoked attack. And according to NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill, the police officer was sitting in her marked vehicle early Wednesday when a man shot her through the window. So this is the violence basically that is happening across all of America, though. We're seeing that blue lives don't matter to a lot of people anymore. We're seeing that these terrorist organizations such as Black Lives Matters, such as Antifa, have no respect for our police officers anymore. These far leftist groups, these groups that call for the deaths of our police officers. And this is all liberal rhetoric that is being thrown around the nation. Now, not all liberals hate police officers. I'm not saying that. But there is actually a large extremist part of the left that hates anything that has authority over them. Any sort of police officer, anyone besides the actual federal government, they just hate. And so they are violent towards these police officers and they kill them. They attack them unprovoked. And it's happening at an alarming rate. It's up nearly 20% this year. And this is from the rhetoric that the left has been posing through America. All the rhetoric from not only just these extremist groups, but even from news agencies. We see they constantly report in this negative tone towards our police officers, saying that everything that they do is racist. Saying that everything that our law enforcement officers do is to kill a man of color just because of his race. Our news media in this nation is throwing this rhetoric out there, and these extremist groups are taking it to heart, and they're taking it and they're attacking our police. We've already seen what the rhetoric from the left has done with attacks on the GOP senators and congressmen. This rhetoric from the left has created this violent extremist part of liberals, and they're attacking people now. They're actually attacking people. You know, people always say that, it's conservatives who are so dangerous because they have all the guns, because they're the ones who like guns, so they're going to go out and shoot people. That's what the left always says. But it's actually them who are going out and shooting people because of ideological differences. It's the left who's going out there and attacking people because they don't agree with policies. A Bernie Sanders supporter shot at congressmen from the GOP. We see these BLM group members, these Antifa group members, attacking police officers. Police officers who are just trying to do their job. Whether it's from what was supposed to be a peaceful protest or just ambushing them. These radical leftists have gotten out of control. These radical leftists are following this narrative that is being pushed by the liberal media, that is being pushed by these celebrities across America, with Madonna calling for blowing up the White House, with Kathy Griffin holding up a severed Donald Trump head. These celebrities, this media, these liberals across the nation are pushing forth this rhetoric that is dangerous, that is violent, that is uncalled for. And they don't stop. They just continue to escalate it. I have never seen anyone that's so violent towards not only the president, but their leadership in Congress, their police officers who are trying to protect them. It makes no sense why they would do this. These people are just trying to help, but now they're trying to attack them. Now they're killing them. Now they're attacking them for no reason. And it's from this rhetoric, this very violent rhetoric. Something has to change, folks. This rhetoric has to stop. These liberals need to realize that, yes, they are creating this nature among the extremists and their ideology so that they do attack these people. They need to realize that. Because right now it is definitely out of control and there's really no stopping it. All right, I'm going to take one last quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. How haven't all of these protesters realized that they are the exact reason why Donald Trump was elected in the first place? How haven't they realized that them being crybabies about every single thing in life is exactly why the American people rose up and voted for Donald Trump? They are the whole reason that they have all this misery currently.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Get out of here, you idiot. Sorry about that, folks. Jason Veely here, host of the Jason Veely program. I'm a 22-year-old conservative who is fired up and ticked off at the direction the progressive left have taken this country. Join me every weeknight at 7 o'clock as we promote liberty, advance conservative principle, and work to restore the Constitution of the United States. I can get loud and I can get passionate. How can we afford not to when so much is on the line? Tune in to the Jason Veely program, live every weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And every time that these universities take up this new social change that they're trying to promote, every time they take that up, they are taking away from that education instead. Because now they're focusing on these social changes instead of learning like they should be.
Calling all young conservatives. Have you ever wanted to write for an online publication? What about host your own conservative radio program? Now you can, thanks to youthrevolt.org. Youth Revolt is a conservative media network for young people, the goal of which is to educate our fellow Americans and also to expose the left-wing indoctrination that goes on in classrooms across the country. Become part of a team that is dedicated to taking the country back, one radio program or opinion column at a time. If you're interested, go to youthrevolt.org and click on Join Us on the top of the page. Fill out our brief questionnaire, and one of our representatives will be in touch with you in no time at all. The time to reclaim our future is now. Be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and join the movement today. Youth Revolt. Speak without fear. Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, the Jason Veely program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. prageru.com.
Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate!
Love trumping hate involves a lot more assault and arson than I expected. The Wise Conservative Show.
Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt.
Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, we all know that refugees definitely pose a threat to America. And that's why we've seen so many conservatives calling for a different solution, calling for less refugees being accepted, calling for stronger vetting, and we even have seen our president calling for his temporary travel ban. Well, now that that's actually being reinstated, let's look at some of the numbers behind actual terrorism related to refugees. We're seeing now, out of different reports, that at least 61% of people, or at least 61, people who came to the United States as refugees, just 61, not 61%, they engaged in terrorist activities between 2002 and 2016. Still, that's quite a large number. According to a new report coming on the heels of that reinstatement of that travel ban. The alarming report is by the Heritage Foundation, and it identified scores of refugees, including many who came prior to 2002, as having taken part in activities ranging from lying to investigators about terror plots to actually taking part in these terror plots. The report, aimed at reforming the U.S. refugee admissions program, calls for stricter limits and restrictions on refugees. Quote, "There is no universal right to migrate. Resettlement is not the solution to mass displacement, and U.S. policymakers have a responsibility to ensure that the United States takes in only as many refugees as it can safely vet and assimilate." This is from the actual report. Quote, "The United States operates the program not because it is obligated to resettle refugees, but because the U.S. is a humane country, and USRAP, or USRAP, or the refugee program, serves its national interests." The report was written by policy analysts David and Sarah, and it could lend weight to the Trump administration's effort to curtail the number of refugees who come to the U.S. every year. But perhaps most worrisome, the report warns that no amount of refugee vetting can account for the 1.5 generation, as they're calling it. Those who come to the U.S. with peaceful intentions and then become radicalized while living in America. Quote, "Given the threat that we found in the 1.5 generation, more needs to be done in the U.S. assimilation process." This is from John Cooper, a spokesman for the Heritage Foundation. "We can't vet an 8-year-old to see if he will become a terrorist when he turns 18 or 28. Instead, we as a country need to rethink the way we assimilate refugees and immigrants as a whole, for that matter." Definitely, the Trump administration has taken measures to limit and more tightly screen these refugees. Earlier this year, the administration reduced the number of refugees that would be accepted this fiscal year. The Obama administration intended 110,000. And the Trump administration changed that to just 50,000, and that cap has already almost been reached because of the numbers that the Obama administration was already bringing in. So, I mean, now, 61 people, as we said earlier, are the people who did engage in terrorist activities. While that's not that large of a number, 61 people from 2002 to 2016, it's still quite a few people. That's 61 more people involved in terrorism that wouldn't have come here. Furthermore, if we actually look to more studies that have come out a while ago and quite recently, we can see that according to Pew Research, at least 15% of Muslims agree with some sort of belief that ISIS holds. They agree with ISIS and sympathize with ISIS in some sort of way. So we can see that 15%, that's a large number. And so we have some of those people coming over here through the refugee programs, and while they might not have ill intentions at first, They're on the internet, they find some sort of propaganda video from ISIS that's out there, and they become radicalized. It happens all the time. We saw many times, especially like the San Bernardino shooters, the Orlando nightclub shooter. These people were radicalized over the internet. They were radicalized, and then they went over to the Middle East, and they got training, and then they came back. It happens all the time, and definitely there's not really a way to account for that 1.5 generation, as they call it, through when you're letting in refugees. But there is a way to prevent this completely, and I know it's just not possible at this point, but we need to stop taking in so many refugees, folks. There's so many other ways that we can solve this refugee crisis in the Middle East. Resettling the entire nation of Syria is not the way to do it. We look at Europe. We look at all the nations who have taken in refugees, and there's so many different terrorist incidents that are happening in those nations. You look at the one nation in Europe who didn't take in refugees, Poland, and they have none. While it's not every single refugee that is a terrorist, there are actually large numbers within them that actually are already radicalized. And we see these refugees coming across to America, going over to Europe, and 99% of them are fighting-aged males who are already very well able-bodied. These people that could easily be soldiers of terrorist organizations. Now, I'm not saying that all of them are. That's not how it is. But there's easily many people in these refugees that could be radicalized, that could be infidels, that are fighting against infidels, as they call it, that could be radicalized already, these jihadists. This refugee program, while it has good intentions, because that's what a lot of these programs that liberals like to set up have. They have good intentions, but it's just not realistic for this society. Because we see these people, there's no way to know whether there's a terrorist among the group. Even with extreme vetting, you're not going to really get every single one. There's going to be some that slip through. What we need to do is set up a system so that we can create these safe spaces within Syria, zones that don't have conflict, that are protected, so that they can stay in their own nation. This would be a much better policy-wise idea. This would be a much better idea, and this is something that our current president has talked about. And a lot of people throughout the presidential campaigns were talking about creating these zones within Syria so that their citizens can live in their own nation still. Yeah, it's a brutal war zone right now, but if we create this, if we actually help them out like that, of course through a coalition, we can't do it all on our own, then this would be a much better option. We wouldn't be bringing potential terrorists to our nation. We wouldn't be putting our citizens' lives at risk to help out these other people, and yet we'd still be helping them out. They'd much rather stay in their own nation than come over to America. They'd much rather stay in their own homes. And in this way, if we actually implemented this policy that our own president has talked about before, then yeah, it would help. It would be a much better option. This legislation should be written up. This plan should be put into place. This is something that should be taken into action because it is a much better option than taking in these potential terrorists to our nation. And it's just common sense that when you have a giant group of people, if at least one of them has ill intent for your own citizens, for your own family members, why would you take that person in? Why would you take those people in? You're not going to reach into a jar of M&Ms if one of them could be poisonous. Why are we doing the same thing with refugees? It's not making sense. This program doesn't make sense. And those people who propose taking in 500,000 refugees like Hillary Clinton did, it's a mindset, yeah, they have good intentions, but they're not looking at the statistics. The statistics say that at least 15% of those people sympathize with ISIS. The statistics say that 61 people from refugees have been involved in terrorist incidents. There's a lot of people who come over here from the refugee program and they develop these ill intents. And the only way to prevent that is to not take them in at all and help them in their own homeland. That's what we should be doing, instead of actually bringing them into America and putting our families at risk, our children at risk, our citizens at risk. It's a change that has to be done, because if we don't do this, there's going to be more terror attacks. There's going to be more people who come over here and are radicalized. Because we're seeing at an increasing rate, ISIS is able to radicalize people over the internet. I don't know how they do it. I don't know where these people are going on the internet to be radicalized by ISIS, but it's happening. And this is the only way we can prevent too many of those attacks. This is the only way. And it's something that we actually need to put into effect, because we've had many Republicans and even some Democrats talk about putting this plan into place. Now it's time for them to actually start working on it. It's time for them to actually implement this plan that they've been talking about for months on end. It's time for them to put their words into action. I know it's a lot to ask for politicians, but something that they need to do. All right, that's all for today's episode of The Wise Conservative Show. I'm your host, Connor Wise. You can find me on youthrevolt.org. Go ahead and search Youth Revolt up on Facebook. Find me on Spreaker.com/The Wise Conservative Show. On Spreaker or on Instagram at @the_wise_conservative. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. And as always, God bless.